A lotus is a flower rooted in the mud that rises through and above to become a beautiful bloom. This is a podcast sharing mine and other stories of how we've done the same, choosing to rise above our circumstances to bloom. I'm your host, Amber. Let's get started. So this is my friend Haleigh.
Hello.
And we have known each other. When did you join Queens?
It was 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, 20. Well, end of
2023?
Yeah, it was like later 23.
Because Sloan was born in January of 23.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also in Gentle Warrior. I was in group 1.
Yeah, you were in group 1.
Yeah.
And I started Queens and Gentle Warrior group 2 around the same time. So it was like August-ish.
Okay, yeah.
Because then we had the jumping off the cliff.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Did you do that? You did it, right?
I did it.
There were only, I think, like 3 or 4 women who didn't.
Yeah, there were only a handful.
Yeah.
That didn't end up doing it.
That was an experience in its own that we should talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so we've known each other for a math, like roughly about 2.5 years.
Yeah, I would say 2.5.
It feels like so much longer.
I know, it does.
That's so weird.
It's really interesting because I think all the people who I've met through Queens or through Gentle Warrior, because of the experiences that we go through, I feel like it kind of amps up the relationship. Yeah,
that's so true. Because I mean, when you think about just like a typical relationship, friendship, whatever, that's going at floating down the river speed.
Yeah.
You're all those big things that we were going through at like an expedited field, they're not experiencing that quickly.
You get to know people on a really deep level really fast.
Yeah.
Rather than just, like you said, just kind of like, well, let's meet for coffee and let's talk about the day and what's going on in our life. Just like very surface level stuff until you get comfortable to like start peeling back those onion layers. And it was like, oh no, you're like diving straight into the deep end. We will know each other at a really intimate level really fast.
Well, like even at that Queens retreat. So that was the last Queens retreat that I went on.
Yeah.
When we were in Moab and jumped off the cliff.
Yeah. Me too.
And there were women who I knew all of the traumatizing things that they were going through of like losing children to cancer and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't actually know your name.
Right.
But I know all of the deep things that you've gone through. And I was actually thinking about it a second ago and I was like, I know that you quit your job, but I don't actually know what you used to do for work.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But we know all of these other deep things about each other.
It's wild.
It is. It's crazy. So, and I've talked about it a little bit before on this podcast, but just like as a explanation. So Queens and Gentle Warrior were both women's life coaching groups that we were in.
Yeah.
Queens was kind of a byproduct of our husbands were in We Are the They, which was such a cool group. Like that group changed our lives.
Oh, absolutely. Like I say from the time Nick started that, because we were starting to date around the time that his group started. I don't know that we would have, like if our relationship would have actually worked out. Because I mean, he was working on himself, but again, it just like the trajectory of that work was so exponential.
Yeah.
That I probably would have been like, okay, like, bro, I don't have time to like wait for you to figure out your shit.
Yeah. And it was funny because Ben and I have done other life coaching stuff and there was one group that we were in that was like really, really great for us and was a big intro to self-help and improvement on other levels besides business.
Okay. Yeah.
And then through that group is how Ben found We Are the They.
Okay.
And I told him, I was like, you can never leave this. Like, I don't know how long it lasts, but you cannot quit this group early because this group is what really opened the door for so many things for us.
Yeah.
And opened like conversations that we had never had. And it was so big.
Yeah. I think it really helped us to have hard conversations. And I think the accountability from the people in the group was massive.
Yep. Yeah.
And not just for Nick. I think it was massive for a lot of the guys that were in his group. It was.
And that what was wild is that, so Ben had been in the group, I think his group started in like November or beginning of December.
He was group 1, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the beginning of April, they had the first Queen's Day, and it was only meant to be just like a 1-day intro, wives getting to know each other. Let's tell you what We Are the Day is really about.
Yeah.
Because the husbands weren't really great at communicating what it all was.
Mm-hmm.
And which was really, really cool. And then I actually got to witness Ben around some of these guys. And so I hadn't really gotten to see him around them. And I just remember sitting there watching him laugh. And he has, I think we all have this, like we have our surface personality. And then we have the side of us and the type of laugh that you only have around your really close friends.
Yeah.
He had known these guys for not even 4 months. And he was laughing like he laughs around his friends that he's known since high school. And Ben's kind of like a quiet guy. So to see him be that open and comfortable around these guys, I was like, okay, this is big for us.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
That's really cool.
All right. So anyways, so that's how we know each other.
Yeah.
I was watching some of your Instagram stories because on your, not your personal, I don't know if you want to call it a business one.
I'm kind of like, I'm posting to both, like the same stuff to both.
Yeah.
Because I've kind of, it's really hard to do multiple Instagram pages because I've got the band one, I've got my personal page, I've got, and then I have, the book page that I had started. And I was just like, why am I trying to split efforts here? So it's pretty much just my personal one now. And then I'll post to that other one just to.
Things that are like book specific.
Yeah, book specific. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tell a little bit of your story. You are so cool. Like you've got so many cool things going. You're in a band, you're writing a book, all sorts of stuff. So if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tell a little bit about your story, some of the things that you're writing in your book.
Yeah.
And then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book actually comes out next Thursday.
Bro.
On my 40th birthday.
Really?
Yep.
Did you plan it that way?
I did. Well, I was able to get everything done and edited and all of the things. And so I was like, well, this would be awesome. Yeah. Because the whole impetus for me writing the book was last year, after I turned 39, I was still so let's go back a little bit. Okay. When I quit my job, it was at it was kind of not at the request, but it was suggested to Nick by Melissa, who is running the Queens group. And he was doing some life coaching with her at the time. And she said to him, she's like, one of the greatest gifts that one of my husbands was able to give me was like this year of creation is what she called it. She's like, it was just a time for me to figure out what I wanted from life. She said, because Haley's been living in survival mode for all of this time. And now she has this opportunity to just like take a breath and figure her out. And I think that would mean the world for her to be able to do that, which was incredible. And I had no idea how to do that. Yeah. So I just started to just fill my time with just all this random stuff. And I mean, we were planning a wedding at the time, planning honeymoons, a lot of travel that year. And so at the end of the year, I was feeling even more lost than I had before. And I'm like, this should be awesome. And I have no idea who I am from this last 9 months. Like I have just kind of done everything I can to distract myself from figuring that out. Yep. So 39 comes around, Nick throws this big surprise party and he's like, how does it feel to be going into your 40th year? And I was like, fucking terrifying. I'm 40 and I don't know who I really am. So he went, he had been writing his book for 2.5 years. I'd gotten the publisher's contact info from Carissa Sherwood. And he's like, I'm really trying to figure this out. Like, would you suggest me going down the route that you did, Carissa? And she's like, well, Nikki, I don't know. Like, she's a little woo-woo. Like, you know, I know you're kind of like, is that like Carissa?
Yeah.
That's how Carissa speak. And he's like, oh, you know, I'll meet with her. So Kira will help you she's a channeling medium.
Mm-hmm.
And so she talks to God and she will channel your book with you. So she has this call with Nick and I'm listening in on the call. And she kind of, she lays it all out of what the kind of plan that what she does is. She goes, and I have a couple options as far as taking people to this island, this private island where we sit for a week and go through your book. Like from start to finish, we'll channel everything. And then it's up to you to just figure it out and write it.
Yeah.
And she says to him, I've got 1 and 2.5 weeks. And he's like, well, that will not work because I am a surgeon and my schedule, like I am booked out for 6 months, like not a thing. She's like, well, I've got something in April. He's like, still nope. And she's like, well, there is this one last option. She's like, there's this TV show we're filming about the whole process and it's in June. And he's like, I could make that work. She's like, but because of what it entails, the cost is more.
Yeah.
And we had consciously made a decision to make 2025 a very like, I don't want to say sparse year, but we were being very conscious of our travel and our spending because we literally like spent more than we made the year before, but between wedding and honeymoon and all of these things.
Yeah.
And so our schedule was wide open as far as travel goes. And he was like, I think this is why we've made this decision. The universe has like wanted us to keep things open for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So he goes, does this thing on the island. I'm watching him write, like we're hanging out in our meditation room while he's writing. And this niggling thought kept occurring to me of like, it's really time. It is time to say your story. It's time to write it down. And I'm just like, no. It's this Nick's thing. This is Nick's thing. Like, go away. He comes back from the island and I'm like, I think I'm supposed to do this too.
Yeah. And
he's like, oh, okay. Well, let's get you on a call with Kira. And within a week of him coming back, I had made the decision to go on season 2. Wow. And the real impetus from it was coming out of a podcast. I was sitting in the lobby waiting for Nick to finish one with another guest. And this guy comes out and he just gives me this huge hug. And I don't know him from Adam. And he's like, you know, you telling your story on the podcast made it so that I felt comfortable sharing mine. And he had been in an abusive relationship and finally felt comfortable to share his story. And I was like, okay.
Even more of a call.
Yeah. So that was where the little spark of inspiration started. So all of that to say, so my book, it's interesting because I've kind of started to dial into what the book really is. And the parts of my past that I write about at the beginning is I've come to realize is not what the book is about. It's just the jumping off point.
Right.
So when I was 18, I was in a relationship started in high school and went into the first couple months of college. Okay. So this whole thing lasted maybe 7-8 months.
Okay.
But it was an abusive relationship. It was emotionally, physically, sexually abusive, coercive. When I tried to leave the first time was the first time he really like attacked me, raped me. And then I ended up marrying him the next day in secret.
Whoa.
Because I was so scared of what the repercussions would be if I left that I was like, well, I'll just dive in all the way down the deep end. And then I'll figure it out. Yeah. But
was it already planned ahead of time that you guys were going to get married that day and then you tried to leave?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't. So I married him in secret. We never lived together or anything. But he would use our marriage certificate basically as a threat. Like, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to tell your parents. If you don't do what I'm saying, I'll go leave a copy on your dad's windshield. And so it just kept me even more stuck because I didn't want, I was embarrassed by it. I was ashamed. I didn't want them to know what had happened. I was just like, I will figure it out myself. How, God knows, because I was 18 and had no clue about how the world worked.
Yeah. Do we ever at 18? We think we do, but
we think we are really smart. So then I was supposed to go down to Southern Utah University to play soccer. I had been accepted to the team. I went down there for a week, and the entire time he was telling me if I don't come back, all these threats. And it kind of culminated in him saying, if you don't come home now, I will come down there and get you myself. You will never see your family again. So I made up an excuse about my knee injury and fled back home. That within a week, my parents were like, no, we are having an intervention here. What the hell is going on? And I told them the whole
So they didn't have any idea. They knew that you were dating him, but they didn't have any idea that it was to the extent that it was as far as abusiveness?
They had some inkling. They had sent like my soccer coach to talk to me. They had sent my dad, like my dad's boss came and talked to me at work. My friend Alyssa had come to them and was really concerned. And she's like, I don't know what's going on, but this is really fucking weird.
So they saw some red flags. Yeah. Something was kind of funky.
Definitely saw some red flags. So I tell them what has happened. They immediately go into like fix it mode.
Right.
We called a lawyer the next day. And I was able to get it annulled under marriage under duress.
Oh, nice.
So I went back to SUU, which probably wasn't, like, in retrospect, probably not the smartest decision.
Yeah.
While I was down there, he attempted to kidnap me. And as we were driving on the freeway, we got onto the freeway from Cedar City, and I was like, fuck this. I will not. This is not going to happen. I'm not going to go with him anywhere. If I go out, he's going out with me. And I yanked on the steering wheel, and we spun out over 3 lanes of traffic.
Oh my God.
So that was the last time I ever saw him. And 3 months later, he was arrested for murder.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So hang on. I have like so many questions. Okay. So when he attempted to kidnap you, was it just like hey, go for a ride with me?
Kind of. And this is where when I had originally told this story on Nick's podcast, I was like, how do I get around telling the truth of this? Because it's really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's really stupid.
It's stupid to you now, but I mean, in the moment, it probably wasn't.
In the moment, so FKA Twigs, she was on a podcast that I listened to, shows she was in a relationship with Shia LaBeouf that was super abusive. There was actually a big trial that went on recently about it. And she said, the one thing that people don't realize that when you are in an abusive relationship and you're staying or you feel stuck in it, or you keep doing stupid things, it's because you're a person who sees the best or hopes for the best in people. You hope that they have the same heart that you do. And I was like, oh my God, it never occurred to me. Yeah. So when he came back down there, and he was just like, I need to go down to a friend in St. George. I have to pick something up from someone who's here in Cedar City. Can you just like tell me where this location is? Because this was like pre-maps on our phones. Yeah. And, you'd have to like print stuff out and MapQuest
it and highlight it.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I kind of know the area well enough. And so we, I get in the car, he fills up his tank, we get on the freeway, and I realize we're going opposite direction, not down to not towards St. George where he said that this guy's house was, because there was like a newer development in Cedar City that was on this like headed towards St. George that he said this guy was at. I was like,
this is the wrong way.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
And that was when he was like, you're never seeing your family again. I'm going to take you somewhere you were like you are my property. Basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hell no.
So you are able to get away.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you just ghost him? Or was he like...
He, at that point, because he had found out where I had kept my location from him secret.
Good.
My parents hadn't allowed me to have my phone or my laptop because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't communicating with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had a prepaid phone card that would show the numbers of where I was calling out to that they could check on.
Yeah.
So he didn't know, but he went to the student services with our marriage certificate and was like, my wife lives here. I don't know where she is. You need to tell me where she is.
And at this point, you guys were officially annulled.
We were through in the process, but I mean,
they don't know
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were like, some kid who's working the front desk there was like, oh yeah, she's in this building. And so he shows up and I was like, so son of a bitch.
Yikes.
But so he knew where I was living. But after that point, because campus security had been alerted to the situation and everything, he never tried to contact me again until he had been arrested.
And then were you like his one phone call?
He kept trying to call my house phone. So we would get inmate phone show up on the caller ID over and over and over again because he was like, he didn't have really anyone else here. Yeah, he had his mom here, but she didn't really she didn't speak any English.
Okay.
So it was very...
Did you know, so then you find out he's been arrested for murder.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that
it was interesting. My mom and I would drive home on the weekends because at the time, any of the friends I had that I had made down there, we just all I did was drink. I just drank myself into oblivion for the first semester of college.
Yeah.
Instead of, deal with the trauma of it all.
Well, I mean, not justifying this, but being someone who did the same thing, not for the same situation, but when I was 18, I left a very culty religion, and my coping was I was like a spring that had been held tight and let go all of a sudden. And it was like, I'm going to try everything.
Yeah.
There was what were coping skills,
Yeah, absolutely. So when the following semester, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Because my 0.2 GPA was really cool.
You're like, we're here for a reason.
Oh God, F's and a D, solid. So I would drive home on the weekends and hang out with my parents. My mom and I we've got this dark humor within my family.
Yeah.
And so something would pop up on the news and it was like, oh, arrested for burglary, theft, arson, this, that, whatever. Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's him. Yeah. Oh, it's him. Oh, it's gotta be, and we would make this as a joke. And then my friend's dad called my dad and I was like, hey, I need to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So Dave shows up, talks to my dad for a second. They go on a drive, come back. My dad pulls my mom into the bedroom, talks to her, and I'm all, what the hell is going on? Something happened with Dave's family. What's the deal? Yeah. And she comes out. She's like, I need to tell you something. You need to sit down. I'm all, okay. And she's like, Edgar's been arrested for murder. And I was just like,
jiggle what?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And it was interesting because there was almost a sense of relief of now I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore.
For sure he's going to be not bugging you.
Yeah. And it was a gang-related shooting.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the person he killed was not, it was wrong place, wrong time. He was shooting at a rival gang member and hit somebody else. Oh, man. Yeah. So he was in prison for almost 15 years, I think, and then was deported.
Wow. Dude, that's so crazy.
So that's the springboard of the book. But I think the really deep message of it is how we go through life, you know, it's not a book. It's not a roadmap, right? This is my experience and what helped me to come back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is a broader message of having resilience through hard times and not letting your story of things that has happened to you be the story that rules your life.
Yes.
You have the choice to, and that's why it's called rewritten. You have the choice to rewrite your story.
Yeah. I love that so much. I've talked about it, like, I think every single episode it comes around to that of like, at a certain point you're living in choice and you get to choose what role these events play in your life.
Absolutely.
If they're building blocks or if they are the rule makers for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I know people who have let very small things. I mean, obviously they don't seem small to them because they have let them run their life for their entirety of their life since it's happened to them. But I, you know, and I don't want to put myself on a pedestal on this, but I'm like, if I can move past that and not make it the epitome of my life and like use that trauma to justify actions and whatever, like it is available to everyone to make that choice.
Exactly. I think that's one thing too, is it's like, depending on people's upbringings, they might not have access to the same options, I guess you could say, but the choice to change something is always there.
Yeah.
It might look different for everybody, but it doesn't matter what your demographic is. You still always have a choice.
Yeah. And we're in such an age where we are almost bombarded by information that is out there. So even if it's following an account that is a self-help account or helps you to learn how to process and cope with your emotions and your trauma, it at least puts you on the first step to figuring it out.
Right. I saw this post. I was scrolling last night and there was this woman who is homeless and she's bringing awareness to what homelessness looks like, that it's not necessarily always drug addicts who are dirty and stealing from people and missing teeth and or scumbags or whatever. It's can affect anybody and it can be people who are trying their hardest. I remember when we lived in California, there were people who were living out of their cars who had full-time jobs and would like get ready in their car, but they just couldn't afford the housing there.
Yeah.
And so like, I appreciated what she was helping people realize, but it just goes to show, like, if someone who's homeless can find a purpose still and create access, like she has a phone, somehow she's paying for the bill. Yeah. Like where there's a will, there's a way is what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's like, if you really want to make this change in your life, like you said, there's so much information out there of different resources and like just even following an account that might help you or listening to a podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With going through that, especially at such a young age, how did that affect your other relationships?
It has been really interesting because, you know, my next, I would say, serious relationship after that was with my ex-husband. And I had known him prior to this relationship starting.
Oh, wow.
And we'd met in high school doing academic decathlon.
What is that?
To put on my nerd glasses.
Decathlon, that's a fun word.
So I was a really great test taker in school, but I couldn't get my homework from point A to point B to point C.
Yeah.
It just wasn't happening. So my grades were like, I was 2.8 because I could, keep them above a 2.5 to play soccer, but I just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah.
But I knew the information because I would read a ton and I would take my tests and I would ace them.
Yeah.
Except for math.
Same.
But my soccer coach came to me and he's like, hey, this teacher is running this academic decathlon program, and she needs someone to compete in state, but they have to have, they run a gamut of different GPAs. So they you have like two people who have 4.0s to, 3.8 to 4.0, and then it goes downward from there. And so they needed someone in the lower GPA bracket.
Thanks, coach.
That tests really well. And it's all,
found my niche.
Thanks. So that's how we met. And, it was interesting because it was at the time, still very young. There were stupid things that happened. There was some cheating and things like that on his end through it. But for the most part, it was just a safe relationship. Mm-hmm. It was very milquetoast.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And so I was like, okay, we'll just have this quiet, safe relationship that I can just like coast through, don't rock the boat, everything's fine. Like I feel safe enough until I was like, oh, I don't want to live my life like this. And then the next relationship I was in was, he wasn't a carbon copy of Edgar by any means, but there were things about him that I was, that always had me on edge and always had just these little red flags. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was with Nick that I realized, it was a very safe relationship, very stable, very loving, that things started to really start popping off as far as my inner work that I hadn't dealt with, that because I was so safe, it was like, oh, now you're going to get to deal with all of your sexual trauma all at once. So here you go.
Yeah.
And so I've been back in therapy for about a year, and it's been really great. 1000%. And when I say therapy, it's very specific. When you are dealing with trauma or PTSD, there are very specific types of therapy that you need to do. I don't think cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy necessarily will get you past the point of being able to deal with and cope and have the correct coping skills. Mm-hmm. I think EMDR is, by and large, the gold standard as far as therapy goes. Parts work or what is the, something family.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's like
IFS.
Family structure.
IFS. And for some people, even that's not enough. Some people have been like, I've only gotten past this with ketamine therapy. Yeah. But also doing that with, in conjunction with a licensed therapist is super important, not just
not all willy-nilly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So I think it's very important to be able to find and commit to something like therapy.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it wild? Because I've had the same thing where I didn't have awful previous relationships. I think I had 3 boyfriends before Ben. Mm-hmm. And they had their issues, but it was like the first one, we're really young and we were partying a lot. Yeah. And broke up and got back together a lot. And then the second one was like that relationship was never meant to be long-term. The communication was not there. Mm-hmm. We just had fun. And so it's like they just had little quirks where it didn't work out. Yeah. But it's so wild that now that I'm in this relationship, and I feel like Ben and I joke sometimes about how we were together for 8 years before we got married, and we had Beckett, and had moved across the country and done all of this stuff before we got married. Yeah. And it was like when we got married, all of a sudden things just shifted of like, okay, now we're really committed to each other, which was so wild because we were committed when we had our son.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was just like this next level. Mm-hmm. And we joke that before we had Beckett and everything, we were just roommates who really liked each other. Like we just kind of existed together. Yeah. And the relationship that we're in now, even just in the last year, the depth that our relationship has gotten, the conversations that we're having, the openness that we have with each other is next level. And it just makes it feel like it makes this relationship feel so fresh. We've been together for, I think in June, it'll be 13 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, 13 years, are you sure? Because like the intensity and seriousness and like love in our relationship feels like it's just been the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's wild how it takes the safe relationship where we feel comfortable enough to challenge each other and ask questions and push and motivate each other to dig deeper, that it's like, oh, you know what? I actually do have trauma from this relationship, or the way that this was handled, or this one conversation that I had with somebody, how that carried through all of these other relationships. And I never even realized it until I was in a place where it was safe for me to be my authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will kind of piggyback on that from what we were talking about previously with We Are the Bay, is that it takes someone who you know is committed to working on themselves as well, and being like, okay, if you're willing to work on yourself, then you're willing to work on this relationship. And until you see that effort, you can't climb those rungs together.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me too, especially, I realized that a common theme, and it's wild how even now I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday about some things that have been coming up for me lately. It's wild how there's been this ongoing theme in my life of people not showing up. And so it almost becomes this excuse, subconscious excuse of, if people aren't going to show up in my life, then why should I show up, especially for other people?
Yeah.
And almost like this easy out for you of like, well, I'm not going to, it's all going to fall apart anyways.
Yeah. It's just self-validation.
Yeah. And it's this vicious cycle. And then it becomes like this unconscious, like self-sabotage. And so it's been wild to see how many different ways Ben can show up for me.
Yeah.
And then it creates that, okay, well, he's showing up for me. He's showing up for himself. He's showing up for our kids and our family and these dreams that we've talked about, this life that we said we wanted to create. He's showing up for that.
Yeah.
I have to show up too. This is a partnership.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes this motivation and you don't have those excuses anymore.
For sure. I would also say too that when you can only go so far in your healing journey by yourself, because you don't have that mirror showing things.
Yep.
For example, part of, for me and Nick, part of our healing has both been working on different sexual traumas. And we were having sex one time, and he like put his hand on the headboard, and that movement of his hand like coming towards me, I flinched and like freaked out. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "That was weird. Like,
yeah,
I thought you were going to hit me." And he was like, "No, absolutely nope." And I was like, "I'm well aware." And so because we had both been, very open with our communication about it, it wasn't this spiral for either of us.
I love that.
And same thing for Nick. He has been in relationships where, he was being told that he wasn't sexually fulfilling in the relationship. And so he would find other ways and other people to find that validation. And we would have these conversations when he would get into this like spiral of something. And we're like, nope, like we're not going down that road again.
Yeah.
And just having the ability to have those conversations just opened up so many other conversations to have that continued to heal other things.
Dude, that's so true. There are so many, Ben and I are to this point now where it just kind of blows my mind and really excites me. So like anytime we have an argument now, it's like, I don't want to say excited, but I like that we're having this conversation because we've gotten to a point where the argument or the conversation isn't, well, you said this and it made me feel this way and and you did this and you did this and you did this. And a bunch of pointing fingers. This is how I felt. Like both of us are taking ownership of how we felt from this situation. You said this and I had this come up. And then the other person is like, oh, well, when I said that, I meant this. And the other person clarifying, like we had a conversation where he said something was bugging him, and I just had this knee-jerk reaction. I wasn't even paying attention or put any thought into my reaction before having the reaction.
Yeah.
But it was enough that it brought up all of this old stuff for him and all of these old fears. And he was like, nope, okay, I'm done. And he shut down. And we were able to continue the conversation and realized, oh, I didn't know that when I say it this way, that this is what it brings up for you. And so all of that to say, like, it's interesting now when you can have the conversation where you're comparing notes openly and realizing, oh, wow, I had no idea that was even going on for you. This is what was going on for me. And you actually get to look at the full picture together.
Yeah.
And then reassess the situation and be like, oh, that actually, I thought it was this huge thing. And I had created this whole story inside of me thinking you meant this, this, and this. And really, it was just this simple.
Yeah.
And now we get to work on it together.
Yeah. Because you can communicate. I mean, fighting is still communicating, but if you're not repairing, so this is a Gottman thing. If you're not repairing and you're like pushing off the attempts to repair from the fight or the communication, you'll start having resentment. There are all of these, he calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, of your like relationship apocalypse.
Yeah.
Start to come up.
Yeah.
And it's being able to repair and make, oh, well, this is what I meant. And being able to accept that and be like, okay, well, I understand that. This is also how it made me feel.
And making room that both can be valid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh God. Learning, the and statement.
Oh my gosh.
This and can be true. This and this at the same time can be true has been the simplest thing.
Right.
But like,
isn't it wild how it's such a simple thought and yet it's so life-changing. Like and it's wild how sometimes we know that, but then somebody simply breaking it down and kind of giving us permission to fully understand that is like, oh, so it's okay that I feel both of these things at the same time?
Yeah. I can love this person and also be really angry at them. And both can be true. I don't have to pick, well, if I love, if I love my mom and she's also said hurtful things, I can still love her and find some compassion for this. Yeah. Or, whatever it might be. Like,
or one doesn't cancel out the other. Like, I'm really upset with this. And so that means I don't love her. Or I love her so much that I'm not allowed to feel the emotions around this thing.
Absolutely.
It's like both can be true. They don't have to cancel each other out.
Yeah.
That's, what else was I going to say? You said something about, communication.
Well, one thing too, it's been interesting is from the get-go, like I've never known how to fight because when you are someone who goes through an abusive relationship, you're just like, no,
I'll just be quiet. Yeah.
Not going to say anything. And so when Nick and I got together, I would really have to take some time to process my emotions and process my thoughts around it and then come back to the situation at hand. And so when that happened the first couple of times, I would just like stonewall. And he's like, okay, you need to talk to me. Yeah. And I'm like, I literally cannot. I need you to give me like 30 minutes, maybe a day. I don't know. Yeah. And then we will have this discussion. But right now, if I talk, like I won't be able to get my words out because it feels stuck right here. And just that that area of the throat just holds so much emotion.
Well, it's that throat chakra. And that's actually something that I've learned recently too, is like when you get all and I feel like people will know exactly what we're talking about. And it feels like your throat is being squeezed. And it's because, for me anyways, I was in such a people pleaser mode that it was like, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm not going to cut. They're already upset. I'm not going to upset them more by verbalizing how I feel, especially if I don't even know how I feel right now. Like, I don't want to say anything. Yeah. And so you can just feel it like squeezing your throat. And it's because it's a muscle that wasn't exercised.
Yeah. You didn't feel safe to use your voice. So therefore, it's just like anything that feels unsafe or like it could cause anything just clamps down. Yeah.
You know what's wild too that I was thinking about is it's like, it's one thing to suddenly be in a safe relationship and be like, oh, I have the space to communicate this. But then now where we've built this tool belt of being able to actually self-reflect and connect the dots of not just, oh, I feel this way.
Yeah.
Or I'm hurt, or surface emotion, cover emotion, whatever. But we're also able to go in and be like, okay, I'm hurt. Why am I hurt? Oh, it's because this happened at one point in my life. Okay, but why did that affect me? And is it really that I'm hurt? And you start to dig in and get the underlying emotions. And okay, I feel these underlying emotions because it meant this about me when this happened in the, like, you're connecting all of the dots. And so then when you do come back to have the conversation and convey how you really feel and you've been able to put words to it, you've also discovered it's not just you did this and I felt this way.
It's not, I've asked you 700 times to take the garbage out. That is your job. That is the one thing I have asked you to do. And so when you don't do it, it makes me feel like you don't listen to me. I'm not important. All you can start to drill down of what it actually is, where the hurt actually lies.
And then that's where the solution and the healing and the teamwork actually comes to play.
Because someone goes, oh, okay, it's
just the
50
trash.
feet to the trash. Like, you could do it yourself too. Like, I don't know why you're like blowing up. It's like, no, it makes me feel like you don't listen to me and that I'm not important enough for you to do these things for me. And they go, oh shit, that is absolutely not how I feel at all. I can totally see how that would make you feel that way. I will make a much better effort to do that if it makes you feel that way.
Yeah. I can do this little thing if it has such big repercussions, positive or negative, for you. So your book is coming out soon. What's it been like opening up? And so you're opening up, you're writing your story. Do you have anybody who's like, oh, please don't tell this part about me? Or have you come up against any walls with that?
I have not. I know there was, there have been some things with Nick's book that happened with. But for me, it was a really beautiful and healing situation for me to tell my parents that I was writing this book, because we, growing up, did not have the best relationship between me and my mom. She was going through a lot of postpartum, she would just fly off the handle quite frequently. And the big, very scary emotions, and that carried into teenage and kind of not necessarily early adult, but like late teen years a little bit until we were really kind of finally able to figure things out and repair things. And so for me, I was nervous. I didn't have any intention of telling anything about that in the book at the time when I told her that I was planning on writing. So I was at my brother's drag show, and they go to every single drag show of his. And so I'm sitting there at the table, and I just said, I'm really thinking of writing a book and sharing my story. And my dad kind of, makes a joke of like, oh, well, make sure that you make us look good in it. And, and he's just kind of joking around. And my mom just grabs my hand and she just goes, tell your story. Whatever that looks like, whatever it is, you tell your story. And I was just like, oh my God, like the healing in that moment was so like unspeakable.
To have that permission from her when you knew that she would probably feel like she had so much at risk.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and, I will say too, like when I broke up with my last boyfriend, I lived back home for a couple months, almost a year before I moved in with Nick. And I was seeing someone for therapy then, and we were just doing talk therapy, but I would come out of my room after, because we would do it virtually, and I'd come out of my room and we'd have conversations after. And I think it's really, when people talk about healing yourself, healed generationally.
Yeah.
I think it's really true, especially if you have the opportunity to have the conversations about what you're talking about, even if they have nothing to do with the hurt or the pain that happened years ago. It just opens up such a beautiful avenue to have more understanding and more empathy for each other.
I've noticed that actually with my mom. I never really understood the whole, they say it heals so many generations back and so many generations forward. I was like, yeah, I get the ones forward because like I'm changing who I am for my kids and blah, blah, blah. Like that makes sense to me. But like, how am I going to heal generations back? That's their job.
Yeah.
And not a lot of them are alive, you know? But it's been really interesting to see, like you said, sometimes I'm talking to my mom about things that have nothing to do with her and my relationship, but she gets to see like, oh, how I'm looking at things differently. And the like, again, the connecting of the dots and the line of reasoning changing. And then it pushes her to be like, oh, you can see the wheels. There have been conversations that I've had with my mom and I can literally like see the wheels turning in her head and the thought process. And it's been so wild to witness. Yeah. And so that's been the case with you and your mom. That's so cool. I was going to ask how that's affected it. Does she know that she had postpartum?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. She has been on an antidepressant for, probably 20 plus years now. And she's like, it saved my life. I don't know that I would be here if I hadn't gotten on something because she's like, I was out of control. And she's apologized. She's like, I didn't understand. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who, I would just have these irrational outbursts. And she's like, I'm really sorry for what that looked like and what you guys had to endure through that.
I'm glad that she was able to get on something that helped her though. Honestly, what's interesting about it too is that like with postpartum, I didn't even think I had postpartum until I finally surfaced 2 years later. And I was like, oh, that's what that was. Yeah. That's why I didn't know who the hell I was and I was acting the way that I was. Yeah. And even then I was like kind of in denial, like, yeah, but it didn't look like this textbook definition. And so it couldn't be that. That's not what it was.
Absolutely.
And so, but I love that your mom, I think that's really, really cool that one, she was able to, especially like we're the same age. And so like when we grew up, nobody was talking about that stuff. Nobody was talking about a lot of stuff. Yeah. Or even knew what to talk about.
Yeah. I think she really only got on something after my best friend had passed away. Wow. Because she saw what I had been going through with my, depression around his death. And it was really like eye-opening of like, oh, this could maybe help me too. And so then she went and talked to her doctor. And so I was probably 15, 16 when she first started on Zoloft.
Wow. But that's cool that she was able to connect the dots with that. Where do you fall in the line of your siblings?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Oldest of two.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's great.
I know. We're like my friend calls it the burnt pancake theory. That the oldest child is always the burnt pancake. You figure out how to like what the setting for the stove is. And you're like, oh, okay, now I got this. And all the other pancakes, you're like, yeah, they're golden brown and beautiful.
It's so true. I told one of my friends because the topic of having a third kid has been a hot topic for the last year. And I was like, I don't know. Part of me wants to do it just because I know like third time's the charm, man. I feel like I've nailed it by that one. That's going to be the golden child. But yeah, it's so true. I feel like our parents are learning along with us.
Absolutely.
And I have to tell my son that all the time. He's 6.5, but I forget sometimes that he's only 6 because his emotional intelligence, while also being a 6-year-old who can't control his emotions, is so wild. Like we'll sit down and have conversations. And one time he had this outburst and we both got riled up about it and then finally calmed down. And our typical practice of when we both get into something heated is once we both calm down, we talk about what we didn't like about it and what we want to be different next time. Okay. Which I can't believe I'm having this conversation with a 6-year-old, but that's what we do every time of like, well, when you do this, I don't like it because da 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 da. Okay, well, what can I do different? Or what can you tell me next time so that I know that that's what's coming up for you? So anyway, so we have this huge outburst, blah, blah, blah. We're sitting down and I'm like, buddy, I just started crying. And he's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, this is my first time. I've never done this before. I've never had a 6-year-old before. I've never raised kids until you guys. Yeah. And so I'm learning and I'm not getting it right sometimes. And that's hard for me because I want to be the perfect parent for you guys.
Yes.
And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, he blows my mind. I love that we're able to have those conversations because I think it like sets him up in the future.
For sure. It absolutely does.
It's really cool to be able to, there's so many things growing up, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this, of that weren't safe for you to talk about, or emotions that you didn't even know that you were pushing down until you get older and you realize, one, you're able to backtrack and realize where things stem from. But then also when you're a stepmom now and having conversations with teenage kids.
Yeah. I mean, we've got older kids, 19 and 14. And it's like the conversations and stuff, they're like the stakes get so much bigger as they get older. So it's been an interesting dichotomy to figure that out, as well as a step parent who's never had kids, because I feel like a little bit your opinion gets discounted because you're like, well, you don't know what it's like. Yeah. You're not actually a parent. And it's like, okay. And I have a lens that sees outside of the bigger picture here, where you guys are so focused like on the trees. I can see the forest. Yeah. So, it's a good perspective to have.
Well, and I think what's actually really cool about that is that, and I do this like with my nieces because they're adults now. And so, and their dad didn't play like a huge role in their life. Like he was there, but he was like more of a friend than anything and just showed up from time to time. Where Ben was really like a father figure to them, setting an example and helping them learn life functions and finances and investments and that kind of thing. And so, and both the girls will fully admit that as well. Yeah. And so when he and I got together, I kind of like stepped into that partner role with him. Yeah. And there were things that they would talk to me about that they didn't feel comfortable talking to their mom about. And then I had a good enough relationship with them and with my sister-in-law that it was like, I remember telling them, they would tell me about their boyfriends and and all this stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm here to answer whatever questions you have if you don't feel comfortable talking to your mom about it, because that's kind of embarrassing sometimes. Yeah. However, I just want you to, and it's between you and me, but if I ever feel like you're putting things at risk or you're being dumb about a situation, I will tell your mom, and I need you to know that. Yeah. And it opened the gateway, and one of our nieces lived with us for a couple of years, and we became so close in the stuff that we would talk about. And so, but it was cool because I had this outside perspective of, I didn't know you when you were little and from birth, and have all of this investment and history with you tied to whatever advice I'm trying to give you or what we're talking about. Yeah. So it's cool to have, it's almost like this clean slate, and it's just straight across of like you said, you can see the forest, and let me tell you what all of the trees look like, not just these trees that you've been standing next to since you were a newborn. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. And you just show up as you, and you're just like, hey, this is what you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're invested in it too, because no matter where you showed up in the storyline, they're your kids. You're invested in what the outcome and how their life turns out.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really cool too, where you've lived a different life than their parents have, then you have so much more experience to share with them.
There's an added perspective, an added experience that they can learn from. I mean, I was telling Rockwell just the tiniest little bit about my story with that relationship. And he's like, bro, you've been holding out on this lore this whole time.
This lore.
I was like, dude.
That's hilarious. You're like, I can't tell you this when you're 12. I gotta wait till you're old enough to understand.
I had to like baby step into this one with you, Rockwell.
For real. That's so funny. Okay, so one question that I like to ask everybody is, with everything that you've been through, what you've learned about yourself through all of this, what's something that you would share with somebody who might be going through something similar?
That once you think you've had it figured out, you still have so much left to learn about yourself. I feel like I'm really just barely like completely dropping the mask, showing up as me all the time, 100%. And I do credit my time on the island writing this book and channeling with Kira, because that was a a message that just kept coming up over and over again of like, you are this person on stage and then you're this person in life, and you feel the most yourself when you're on stage. How are you like translating that, and why are you blocking that? And so now I get to dig even deeper into that and see what those masks that I've dropped look like, and see maybe where I've pendulum swung way further over to the other side, where I can be more centered and not be so feral all the time.
Right. Like what are the other?
Yeah.
That's
so it's
cool.
but it's constantly, you're constantly learning. So you're constantly growing, and you're constantly becoming a whole new version of yourself all the time. So
I love that. I think what's really cool about that too is, I mean, I think to some extent for somebody who might be in the thick of it, realizing like, oh, there's a level to me that I don't even know, that might sound overwhelming, but also it can be so exciting of if you're in the thick of it, the other versions of yourself that you get to meet.
yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah.
They're really, really cool.
Yeah.
And the universe will show up to test you and be like, are you sure you want this?
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to keep choosing yourself over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. You did a post not too long ago where you showed a picture of you when you were, I don't know how old you were, but you were like in this red dress. And it was like, I forget what it said, but it was basically like you're doing this for all of these other versions of yourself.
Yeah.
And so it kind of goes both ways of like, we get to think about the future versions of ourselves, but then it's really cool that when you get to a certain age, you can also find your authentic version and do all of this work to heal the past versions of yourself that didn't get to.
Yeah, absolutely. That we're stuck in this box of like trying to fit in.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
on.
having me.
I really
This was
appreciate
fun.
it. I'm glad we finally got to make it work.
I know.
Last time there was a dairy incident. We had to reschedule. So I appreciate you.
Of
coming on
course.
here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and go leave a review on Apple Podcast. It helps me know what you want to hear and who I should have as a guest next. Thanks again, and until next time, keep living the life of a lotus.